Welcome to the Stories Told podcast. This is episode 131, Phasers and Feelings. This is the Stories Told podcast. Two authors talking about stories in movies, TV, and of course, books.
I'm Michael Grayford. I write action-adventure stories in fantasy and sci-fi worlds, sometimes for younger readers and sometimes for adults. And I try to always inject at least a little bit of humor.
And I am author E.W. Barnes, and I write action-adventure, time travel novels, and space opera science fiction. Thousands of years, thousands of worlds. But be forewarned, beyond here, there will be spoilers. Are you ready for the adventure? Let's begin. Welcome back to the Stories Told podcast. I'm author E.W. Barnes, and with me is author Michael Grayford. And today we're talking about the story told in the television series Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. How are you doing today, Mike?
I am doing quite fine today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And what's new in your writing world?
In my writing world, not much new in my writing world. I've been pretty lazy the last week. I think I mentioned this maybe the previous week. I've just been trying to enjoy the weather before rainy season starts.
Yes, you did mention that.
Yeah, going out and walking and hiking and stuff like that. We did have some rain, but then we had some nice days again. So trying to take advantage of those days. But mostly, honestly, it's just laziness. Laziness and being distracted.
You know what?
Nothing really new.
That's kind of the time of year. One of my siblings accused me of going into hibernation mode.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you know what?
true.
That's not wrong. It sort of feels that way, when the days get shorter.
Yeah, the days get shorter, and it's like my mind starts winding down very quickly toward the end of the day. It's like,
Yes. I'm still in the sort of dealing with life issues mode. So I've decided,
yeah.
kind of in similar to what you've talked about, I'm kind of going to be a little bit on a hiatus with my writing for right now. It's very hard to focus. I'm using a lot of my brain power on other things that are necessary to be done right now. And I've just decided I'm not going to stress about it anymore because I have been stressing about it. So there we go. That's so we're both sort of a little bit on a writing hiatus, which I think is okay. You've got to refill the creative well, and the muse comes when the muse comes. It's a lot easier to be open to the muse when you're rested and you've got your brain going okay. Have you encountered any interesting books, movies, or television lately?
Let's see. What have I seen recently? I saw Ballerina. Did you ever watch it?
Isn't that like a John Wick movie?
Yeah. It's from the John Wick
Okay.
universe. I actually enjoyed it. It's
good.
similar in style to John Wick. It's obviously a different character that you're following, although he does make an appearance in the movie. But it's the same kind of thing, revenge story with lots of murder. Basically, what it is. Lots of killing and fun action scenes over the top.
Yeah,
it's entertaining.
Okay, good.
Have you encountered anything cool?
Let's see. I am still working through the 4th book of the Stormlight Archive. I'm almost finished with that, which means I'll be ready to read the 5th book, which is the new book that came out this year, and the one that sort of wraps up part 1 of the overall story arc of the series, and then for which the next book that starts part 2 won't be coming out until 2031. Still trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not hurrying through this. I'm taking this very slowly.
If this is going to be a conclusion to the story for these characters, and then it's going to continue again in the same universe, but later in the future or something, or is it just a pause?
You know what? I don't know. Let's see if we can find out. I'm going to see if maybe Brandon Sanderson's page says anything. Oh, wow. There's just so much stuff here. If people are into the Stormlight Archive, there is a lot of stuff here. They've got deleted scenes, sample chapters, artwork. So I don't know. I actually don't know whether the next half of it is with new characters or not. Maybe I'll have a better idea once I finish book 5.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know.
Okay.
And then obviously keeping up with Ghosts, which season 5 is now being released, one episode a week. And the British Baking Show, which is having one episode released per week. And we're going to be talking about the new TV series Murderbot on our next podcast after this one. So I've been starting to watch those. And I think that's it. Are you ready to talk about Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, let's do it.
Today we're talking about the story told in the television series Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Now, this series, one of multiple Star Trek series, is the story of the Enterprise under the command of Captain Christopher Pike. And so we see some familiar faces such as Spock and Uhura and recently Montgomery Scott, but it is a series that takes place prior to the original series of Star Trek that most people are familiar with Captain Kirk. And this series is currently at 3 seasons with, I believe, at least 1, if not 2 more seasons in the works. And so we're starting here talking about season 3, or actually we're talking at the end of season 3, even though we're going to talk about the whole series thus far. When we decided to talk about this, Mike and I were both under the impression that we had done a podcast about Strange New Worlds, but we couldn't find it in the podcast library. So the best guess is we must have talked about it on a podcast and just haven't talked about it as a podcast. So that's what we're doing today. And of course, we'll probably talk about it again once the series is complete, and we'll talk about the series as a whole. But right now, we're going to be talking about the first 3 seasons and what we think. So, Mike, what do you think about the first 3 seasons thus far of Star Trek Strange New Worlds?
Yeah. I like the idea of this show. I feel like it's probably closer to the original series in a lot of ways than some of the other series have been. Kind of started off like that same thing, like that, 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, right?
Yeah.
It kind of has more of that original show feel to it than some of the others do. I think it came off of Star Trek Discovery, right? I think something with Pike happened in Discovery, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah.
And then that kind of led us into this, which was cool. I like the way they set that up, where this character sort of knows his fate. He knows where this is going in the same way that the viewers do. It's interesting. Yeah. So I think in the first season they dealt with that, if I remember right? Like he was struggling with how to process the fact of, his, I won't say his demise, but what happens to him, which is obviously not going to be very good. But I liked it. I like the setup where they give us some of the crew members from the original series, and I like how they go from, we'd see different planets and different civilizations and things like that. It has more of that original feel. So I like a lot of that. The tone is interesting. I would say it's a little less serious than the original show is at times. The crew is a little bit more joking around with each other. And then also sometimes it is more serious than the original show. They get, episodes that are pretty intense, like we got with the Gorn last season and this season.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mix of the two, right? I'm trying to remember more stuff from the first 2 seasons. What is your take on it? Like what's the aspects of this?
I think you hit on some of the really most salient points. I agree. I think this is probably one of the best Star Trek series in a while. In that it has such an interesting balance of humor. It's like they learned the lessons of The Trouble with Tribbles from the original series, and now they're applying it on a regular basis throughout this series, and that's fun. But then they also learned the lessons from Star Trek Deep Space Nine about the importance of, or the success of, I should say, story arcs woven into the season and the series, and tackling deep and important issues. And it's really interesting how they go back and forth. When I watch an episode that's light, I'm like, okay, next week's is going to be dark. And when I watch an episode that's dark, I'm like, okay, next week's is going to be light, because they are flipping back and forth between that. But I think it works. And I also like how, and this is one of the things that to me, it makes it really stand out from, say, Discovery. Discovery was very much focused on one person with other people sort of in the background. Whereas in this series, we are getting backstory for all of the characters. This is truly an ensemble show, and we're digging into all these folks' backgrounds so that we actually really care about all of them. And so when we have these B stories set next to the A stories, they all work because we're all like, okay, I do care about what's going on in the B story. I do care about what's going on in the A story. And it's constantly moving things forward in a really positive way. There are very few of these episodes that I think are not well done. I mean, there are some that are better than others, but I don't think there are any that I have watched that have been real, crash and burn kinds of episodes. I think it's interesting and it's hard to make a series that's a prequel to a beloved series, right? You got to make sure that you stick with canon, and they're dancing around canon. I mean, some of the stuff with Spock is a little dancing around canon a little bit, but it's not so bad that I'm like, oh gosh, I can't watch this because it didn't happen that way in the original series, so it's completely missing the validity and the truthfulness of it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, that's one of the issues I have with this show, but we can talk about that when we discuss what
Okay,
we
all
think
right.
have improved.
But I like, for example, the exploring of the world building with the Gorn. I think that's fascinating. That's never been done before. And so we're filling in a lot of gaps in culture and world building with the Gorn that we didn't have, which I think is really cool.
Something you said that stood out to me, which I very much agree with, is I think they do better than the original series in exploring these characters.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the original series with Kirk and Spock and Scotty and all them, it's like, what do we really know about Scotty or Bones or Sulu or Chekhov or Nurse Chapel or like any of the other characters, or even Kirk for that matter? How much do we really know of that character's backstory?
Yeah.
So the only character we get any kind of semblance of depth from is Spock, and a lot of that is just because of his, new magic ability of the week.
Right. Right.
Or something that
And what we learn about Kirk is just all his previous girlfriends.
Right. Yeah. So I do think this show does that a lot better. I mean, the original series wasn't so much focused on that. It was more focused on sci-fi ideas and the morality play of the week. It was just a different era, different time, and different goal. And I think now from our shows, we expect more character development. We expect, to know more about these characters and what their motivations are and their relationships and things like that. And I think this strikes a pretty good balance.
Yeah.
I think the Star Trek The Next Generation almost went too far the other way, where there was episodes where were just about character relationships and almost no sci-fi, and they were just utterly boring. So I think this one strikes a better balance.
One of the things that is a strength of the original series is the relationships between the characters. Even though they didn't intend to make it character driven, in the end, that's what really hooked people, was the relationship between the characters. And so it kind of evolved itself and evolved the entire sort of franchise, so that there's a really nice balance now. I think that Strange New Worlds balances it beautifully. So let me hear about from you what comes, some of the things that bothered you a little bit.
I had more notes on like this specific series, but I think some of these things probably carry over across this show. One of the big ones is the continuity. I feel like they maybe either should have just conformed to the original series as much as they could, or just kind of forgotten it and pretend this is an alternate world. Because now it seems like they're trying to pretend this is connected to the original series. But then there's things that are so contradictory and different that it makes it hard to see this as a prequel that's going to flow right into the original series. There's just even character stuff, like you were saying with Spock. It's like he's such a different character than in the original series, which, okay, that's fine. They're exploring more of his human side and they're giving him relationships and things like this. But that's not who that character is in the original series, even remotely. The continuity is kind of all over the place. And then you've got the Gorn, which, I mean, I get it. They're trying to take the Gorn from the original series and make it cool, as opposed to this guy in a suit. That wasn't that great. Even though I love that original episode, the arena episode from the original series, I thought it was great. You look back at it now, and it's, it's kind of silly how that thing is supposed to be menacing. So they did take that and make it menacing, but now they've introduced this whole species as like in this major conflict with the Federation and all this stuff going on, and that doesn't exist in the original series. Like there's no like they didn't even know who these things were. So there's things like that. And then in this season, they bring presumably the character of Trelane from the original series back, right, with
Yeah.
the wedding episode. I'm guessing that's supposed to be Trelane. He acts
Or
sort
a
of similarly.
Trelane-esque life form.
Yeah. Yeah, even if it's not exactly the same character, it's clearly intended to be the same universe, like the same, what else, like species or type of being. Which means like Spock would have remembered that in the original series. Like, oh, this is like that other character we saw. So there's like these things that they're bringing up, trying to connect with the original series. But I almost think would have been better just to do something, make it new, make it its own thing, like some of the other shows do. Or if you want to connect it in a way that maintains a better continuity with the original show. Because right now, for me, it feels like the more they do, the more they try to link to the original show, they're doing it in ways that sort of break continuity with the original show. So it doesn't bother me too much because I'm not really one of these purists. It has to be exactly the same. It just seems like they're trying. Like one thing they did that I thought was fairly good was when this season when Kirk is forced to be a captain, right? He has to take over from not Batel.
Yeah.
I forget who he takes over from. And it's his first taste of leadership under the pressure of life and death. And I thought that was a good way of setting up like, oh, this is Kirk's first taste of that. And, then we'll get him in his 5-year mission when he eventually takes over the Enterprise. So I thought that was kind of cool. I think things like that are nice. And it's nice seeing more depth to these characters, seeing how Scotty comes in and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a mix for me in terms of their continuity with the original series.
Yeah. And for me, I think the only thing I can think is maybe, for example, for Spock, because Spock was so rigid a character when we first met him in the original series, that perhaps it's the loss of Captain Pike that causes him to sort of contract into a more rigid Vulcan-like experience. Maybe they're going to head it off in that direction so it does land our characters where they need to be for the original series. I don't know. But you're right. And I kind of was not excited about having the Trelane rehash happen, or for that matter, the most recent episode with the Metrons.
Yeah.
And having that happen again. I mean, there is so much that can be done creatively when you're dealing with outer space and other planets that I don't think you have to rehash everything. You can leave some of those things, those stories for the originals and create your own new stories. I don't know what, constraints the writers are under as far as like, somebody's insisting that they do this. If you're doing the Gorn, you must do a Metron version. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking that a lot this season. Like it feels like they're trying to move us into the original series by introducing these elements rather than just keeping it as its own thing. Let them explore their own planets. Like,
yeah,
we have a holodeck episode. It's like, come on, do we need a holodeck episode?
Yeah.
We had how many shows with holodecks in other series? Like, we didn't need that in this show. Why are you bringing that in? Again, it's like, oh, we have to introduce this concept because it's going to come up in the future. You don't have to introduce this concept. We didn't know about this concept in the original series. Why are you introducing it now? So things like that. The Metrons, definitely. It seems like they're trying to use the Metrons as a memory wipe. Like, oh, we're just going to wipe the Gorn out of these people. The whole Federation's memory, apparently. They kind of alluded to that at the end, right? It's like, oh, maybe we'll have to change what they think or something like that. I don't know. All of that just makes me think it's like either do your own thing or make it consistent with the original. But this kind of halfway thing isn't working. And I think in this season in particular, there were too many things that were trying to refer to the original series, and yet at the same time, blew the continuity out of the water and were unnecessary. I want to see something new in these episodes, not stuff we already have seen.
I agree.
But
100%.
I think the first 2 seasons were better that way than this season.
With this season, what was the episode you enjoyed the most?
Well, the one I enjoyed the most. Well, I liked the first episode because it was a continuation of the previous one.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of wrapped up that. And it was more, like action thriller kind of episode, action thriller horror kind of thing. I thought it wrapped up pretty well. And they did something I enjoyed with the ticking time bombs to increase tension. In that episode, they have multiple things going at the same time, right? They're trying to get this sort of cloaking device working before they reached the Gorn. They're trying to heal the captain before the eggs get hatched. They're trying to, this other group was trying to escape and release the prisoners in the Gorn ship before they get digested. So like all these things that are like time pressures all at the same time. I thought they did that really well, and that was fun. But again, that's kind of like coming off of the previous season. Another episode that's just sort of on its own, maybe a little bit. I guess for me, probably one of the better ones was, what was it called? Terrarium, the one with Ortegas and the Gorn on the planet. I mean, that was very Enemy Mine.
Yes.
Type.
Watch that. I've seen this movie.
Yeah, so it was definitely a very familiar feeling, but it was good from character development. They'd set up that like she was having nightmares and flashes of this horror, and then she has to come face to face with one and deal with it and see, okay, this is another entity. These things aren't just monsters. There's some, I don't want to say humanity, but there's some sentience in this other being. So I liked that until the end when they brought the Metrons. I thought that was just unnecessary.
Yeah.
The last part. I thought that was pretty good. Kind of brought it down to a more personal level. And then I liked the sort of sci-fi aspects of the last episode, where there's a sort of time looping effect.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool idea. I have other issues with that episode, but I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of it. I enjoyed
Some of the science seemed a little sketchy.
Yeah. Well, yes. That's often the case.
So,
yeah, are you? Okay. What is your favorite episodes?
Agree. I thought Hegemony Part 2, which was the season opener, was really good to wrap up what had happened at the end of previous season. I also really liked the episode What is Starfleet, because of it's sort of looking at how media can change perspectives, and just not communicating a whole picture, just taking a piece of a picture can be very misleading. I thought that was a good angle for the show to tell. That was probably the only one that was kind of closest to social commentary.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I like Terrarium too, up to the point with the Metron. I thought that was frustrating at the end. I was like, seriously? I enjoy sort of digging into Mbenga's history. We only see him in a couple of episodes on the original series, and he is a fascinating character on the original series. And you just want to learn more about him, but there wasn't really, much screen time for him. So I don't
even remember. Wait, what is he on the original series?
He was in the episode, I think it was Operation Annihilate, that I can remember right off the top of my head. The one with the little plastic vomit things that attack Spock on his back.
Oh, okay.
And so in order to was he in that one? No, maybe it wasn't that one. It was maybe Private Little War, and Spock got shot. Anyway, there's an episode where Spock is injured and he's coming out of it, and Mbenga has to, Spock requests to be hit. He needs to be flapped around in order to help his...
Right.
And so, Nurse Chapel can't do it, but Mbenga comes in and, whacks the heck out of him. It's just really interesting. He has knowledge about working with Vulcans and how they heal. What else does he know? Who is this person that seems to understand how to beat up Vulcans? And
that's cool. I didn't even realize he was on the original.
Yeah, only 1 or 2 episodes, not many. So I enjoy watching the episodes where we get sort of a little bit of his past. I enjoy episodes with Nurse Chapel's background too. However, this character is so different than the one we see on the original series. And that's, of course, very, time specific. Women were portrayed very differently back in the 60s than they are now. And so that's part of it. And I recognize that. So, but in the original series, she's almost like she has no idea who Spock is in the original series.
Right.
Whereas now they dated for a while. And and I kind of just wonder how they're going to reconcile that, or are they even going to worry about it?
I don't think they're going to even
I don't know.
Discuss it.
So if you had to pick a theme for either this season or for the entire series thus far, would anything come to mind?
Yeah, it's so difficult because it's not like a show where there's just one main storyline going, right? It's each episode kind of does its thing for the most part, although there's sort of a thread going through sometimes. I was trying to think of something for this season. Maybe, there's certainly the idea of never giving up, right? Of like, there's always some way to work something out. That's a very Star Trek thing where the odds seem impossible, and then they come up with a solution, and everything's resolved perfectly in the last 1 minute of the show. That's a very common theme throughout Star Treks. So I think, just sort of never giving up and always working on it and using your brains. I think in this season, there was this idea of acceptance of your fate, bringing peace with both of the captains, right? Captain Patel basically realizing what she has to do at the end and being at peace with that. And at the same time, Pike also being able to come to peace, although it kind of cheated because they both, in a sense, got to live full lives with each other.
I actually really enjoyed that.
I did too. I forgot to mention now because I that aspect of that episode I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
it's like, and it was satisfying from a viewer's perspective, right? To see them get it.
Yeah.
In particular, Pike, because we know where he's going. To see, it's like, okay, he at least had this. So he got to sort of have that whole life, and now, he can deal with what's coming. So I thought that was cool. I think another theme is, and this one's probably most prominently presented this season in the Terrarium or Enemy Mine episode, about, I would say it's about not judging individuals with, preconceptions, especially preconceptions of maybe a group that you're dealing with. She gets to learn from that. So that's one that stood out. I was having trouble trying to pick out a whole theme because it's just, as is the case often with Star Trek, they bounce from theme to theme, from episode to episode. Yeah. But did you find global themes or individual themes that really stood out for you?
The ones that stood out for me are the ones that are the obvious ones, loyalty to your friends and faith in your friends.
Yeah.
And those go hand in hand, obviously, because when you have faith in your friends, you're going to be loyal in your responses to them and reactions to them, and vice versa, right? And so, like, one of the things when we're talking about Terrarium, it's a great opportunity for Ortegas to have some personal growth, but the entire time she never doubted that her people were coming for her. Never doubted. Right. So there's this faith, and she wasn't wrong. The loyalty was driving them to go get her. And she had the faith that it was going to happen. And so you see that over and over, I think, throughout all 3 seasons. And so that would be both my season and overarching theme that I pull from this. And it's something that Star Trek does very well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we talked about that, or at least that theme was present in the original series episode we talked about with the
Tholian web.
Yes, the Tholian web. Thank you. But they weren't willing to let Kirk just go when there's like a chance that they could get him.
So as a writer, is there anything that you take away from Strange New Worlds thus far in the first 3 seasons?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, other than what you just mentioned, which I think is a great theme and a great thing to deal with, I kind of have that in my stories with found family, where it's like, they're very loyal to each other. I like in this season, I really like the building of tension by ratcheting up multiple different time crunches in one story at the end. I think there was a couple episodes here, more than 2 probably, where they did that really well. I like that. That's a good takeaway. And I think on the other side of it, I think if you're going to bring back earlier elements of your story, like in this case, stuff from the previous series, and you think, maybe we can do that better, like, the Gorn, either change the universe somehow or use it as inspiration to make something new, or make it like an isolated element of the universe that nobody encountered before. Something to make it so that it works with the continuity a little bit better with what you've written before. So those two things would be my takeaways. What about you?
My takeaway is focused on because I am such a big fan of the ensemble structure of storytelling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's found family, and I'm a big fan of found family stories. And so for me, I really take away how well they weave, most of the time, the adventure plots with the sort of personal development plots where we learn more about each individual character. I really like that, and I think it's well done in this series.
Yeah, I agree. I think for the most part, they found a pretty good balance.
Thank you for joining us as we talked about the television series Star Trek Strange New Worlds. A huge thanks to our Patreon supporters and all our listeners. Your support, noticed through every like and every share, means the world to us. If you enjoyed today's themes, here's some further readings. Michael's Tales of Zara series was inspired by the Arabian mythology of 1001 Nights. Start with the Golden Scare of Balahar, an enchanting quest that will captivate readers who love magic, wonder, and strong heroines. Links are in the show notes if you're curious to explore more. The Stories Told podcast is on all major platforms. Please like, subscribe, or follow to help us reach more story lovers like you. For book, TV, or movie suggestions, drop a note on our YouTube channel, and that link is also in the show notes. You can find Michael Grayford at michaelgrayford.com and E.W. Barnes at 1000years.com. Join us next time as we talk about the story told in the television series Murderbot. Thanks so much, Mike. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you next time on the Stories Told podcast.